from Mr. Glass and I'm not a podium person. Oh, okay. Thank you. I'm also a member of the Iosco Republicans, and I'm also a member of the 5th Congressional District Executive Committee. As you probably might not know, Iosco County used to belong up here in the 1st, where we do belong to the rest of the common sense folks. But thanks to gerrymandering a district, which I'll get into briefly here in a moment or two, we've been sent down to be completely obliterated our voices by the people of Flint and Genesee County in the 5th District. That being said, I'm David Chandler. I'm running for the 106th District. I served in the United States Marine Corps for 25 years in marine aviation. Ground support equipment I started out as, and I became a logistician. My last 4 years I worked on general staff, working process improvement, and getting to sit down and read the casualty reports coming in from Iraq and Afghanistan. And when I got done with that, I went as an aviation analyst and worked 2 more years for the Marine Corps in aviation, and process improvement again, to improve the way we do things in aviation. And all these things are processes: manpower, logistics, training, the whole 9 yards is all part of logistics. So in that regard, what I'm about to tell you is where I get my background from, okay? I got to Michigan in '09. We bought a small family farm down in Whittemore, 40 acres. And I went about the business of starting this farm. I got some beef cows and some sheep, poultry, chickens, ducks, the whole nine. I had some goats, but they ate my apple trees, and I had to get rid of them. And you know, about 2012, I poked my head up to find out that the Supreme Court had upheld Obamacare. And I was like, how on earth could the Supreme Court do that? And it came to the fact that they actually had to reinvent a language to change the law, which is an act of legislation, which is far beyond their powers. So I got a little bit pissed off about that, and I started studying the Constitution, the Founding Fathers' principles and the documents, the Bible, Western philosophy, political science, the whole 9 yards. For about 3 years. I had my head stuck in books and what have you. And I came out as an analyst, and I applied all that knowledge I'd gathered as an analyst, and I came to the conclusion that we're living in an oligarchy, okay? And an oligarchy is dictatorship by committee. That's all it is, okay? And how that works is, for us, both at the national level and the state level, is they draw out these big districts of all these people in them, right? And they crisscross them, and they get them all confused a little bit. So you vote for your guy, and he goes down to Lansing. You've done your job, and he goes ahead and does whatever he wants, because he knows as long as he doesn't piss off more than 51% of the people up there, he's going to get reelected pretty much every time, because it's only a three-tour term, you know. So they get to go down there, and then because these districts are so big, it's the people and organizations with money that usually can get down there with the lobbies and influence the legislatures. And those are basically the power brokers for the government down in Lansing. So you got your power companies, which we already know they got a monopoly down there. They're sharing Michigan. We got the auto industry, we got unions, we got special interest groups, environmental, what have you, all the way up and down the state that are screaming for money, whatever have you. Education, of course. So they're all ganging up on the legislatures down there to get laws passed in their favor. And sometimes they're actually writing the laws for them, because Lord knows.
That's right.
So that's basically how it works, okay? So what we have to do from a systems analyst point of view is we got to change the system, because, you know, if you're a sports car mechanic or engineer or builder for that matter, and GM decides to send you to a school bus plant, you know, with all your knowledge and information and skills you have, you go into that assembly line. Guess what's coming out the other side? A school bus. Okay, so it doesn't matter how good you are or what your intentions are. you go in there, you're going to end up building a school bus. Same thing when you go down to Lansing. Doesn't really matter how good our intentions are. You're going to go down there, you're going to beat your head against that bureaucracy because there's a paradigm. This is the way we've always done it. Who's heard that, right? This is the way we've always done it. And to fight and to break through that takes an enormous amount of effort. So, you know, my intention is to go down there and be the thin slice of that wedge, start cracking things open and getting those legislatures to start thinking differently. But it can't just me. It can't be me. In fact, I would love it if I could go, Jess could go, Jackie could go, and Sue could go down there. Each of us in our own counties. And I'm saying, well, then you're going to have to fight it out with Jackie. Sorry. But, and that's what we have to do, leading on to that, okay? Because the only way we can break these districts, make the county the base of power in the state. Okay, that way the county gets to keep its money. The county gets represented down there and makes the laws instead of, right now the county is just an extension of the state. The state says, do this. The county says, no, okay, you're not getting any money. Okay, oh yes, I will do it, you know. That's how it works. So they work as an extension of the state. What we need to do is turn around and say, have the counties being able to say, we're independent. We have our own money. We're tired of you taking our money and then having us to beg you to get it back, okay, through whatever programs, okay? And that's the same thing with the federal. Federal government's doing the same thing. And what they're doing by doing this is they're destroying our sovereignty, okay? Because who are you going to answer to? If you're the sheriff and the federal government says, hey, here's all this stuff, you know, or you're the transportation department. Hell, here's all this money for transportation, but you're going to do bike paths with it, you know, or you're going to use, you know, you're going to use this for riot control. You're not going to use it to start a militia, the sheriff, you know, stuff like that. They start dictating to you how you're going to do your job down in your county, and so you're powerless. Everybody get the district thing? Because that's, I cannot stress that enough. The one thing I want to stress before you walk out of here is understand that districting is silencing us. You know, Iosco County is a perfect example at the federal level because they don't care about us down in Genesee County, and they've got the population. So we're done. You know, if we were at least another 100,000 people in the first district, that'd count for something, you know.
Well, you explained it to me this way, which made a lot of sense.
Dave, can I finish? I've got 10 minutes, and after that we can get into the conversation. Thank you. Okay, here's the other thing, okay? We got the executive branch. They get the money from the legislature, and they all take it out, and they have what they call rainy day funds. Well, they're just slush funds, okay? They put this money away, and they've probably got millions and millions of dollars tucked away for a rainy day. But what they do with that money is they hand out favors to people, I'm sure of it, you know? Hey, if you want your roads done, then you're going to play ball with the governor, you know? If you want this done, you're going to play ball with the governor. So that's how the governor has power. So what we need to do is have the legislature say all those rainy day funds go back to the treasury. That's our rainy day fund. Okay, if you have a rainy day, come back to the legislature and make a request for that money out of the treasury. Now you're not going to hold it over us because you make us powerless. Okay. I mean, this is if you just. I studied this stuff, so it's like second nature to me now. So if there's any questions, we'll get to it at the end here. Okay. Our court systems and our bureaucracies have become little dictatorships because they're the plaintiff usually, the state, you know, a state is against you. They're the prosecutor, they're the judge, and they're the executioner. So you're better off doing a plea bargain, probably, and most people do, because the chances of winning are pretty slim. So that's what happens. That people end up getting a prison term or a bad record because they just can't fight City Hall, or you can't fight the system. And we can talk about that some more too. Okay, so I've already talked about a couple things real quick about the new system we have to do. We have to make happen here. And it's going to happen here because those knuckleheads aren't going to do it by themselves. Okay, we've got to get groups like the Republican parties and the Tea parties and the Women's League of Voters and everybody else who's conservative, who wants to get their country back, to start a battery of initiatives to change our Constitution to do this, okay? And once again, talking to Kerry about that Article 5 thing, unless I see every single that detail of that Article 5 thing written down, it's a loose cannon. They could tear the whole ship out.
Why would the founding fathers put it in there then?
We'll get to that afterwards.
Okay.
Discussion point, we talk. Okay, we talked about that. Okay, I'm talking about the problems fixing themselves. My reasoning for going down there, I got 2 young boys. I can see the writing on the wall. I know exactly what's going to happen. They basically created a dueling democracy, which is supporting the oligarchy, and democracies commit suicide.
Yeah.
Because you'll end up with factions. You can already see the factions now. They're stirring trouble with the blacks, the whites, the immigrants, the illegal immigrants, you know, same-sex bathrooms, you name it. They're stirring the pot so they can write their own new constitution, in my view, anyway. And that's why, you know, as a Marine, I swore an oath to the Constitution, and I'm sick and tired of watching those people down there just stomp all over it. You know, there's a rule of law here, and if we allow this nonsense to continue, where we have the legislature getting in brand new Senate building for, what, 4 times more than it was worth, and then the state police doing real estate, and Lord knows who else doing real estate, and just seizing our property through property seizure laws, we're going to end up with nothing. We're going to end up being paupers. We're going to end up being slaves to this new system. While I'm down there, I got a 5-figure discount checklist on the legislative checklist, okay? And it's basically, this I was down south for a few years, or for a year, and I had this history teacher say, you know, the president gets to veto a bill, and he went through the list, okay? Is the bill constitutional? Can you read it? Is it comprehensible? Is it affordable? Can we enforce it? And will it be a burden on the people? If the answer is no to those, then you don't sign it, except for the burden, obviously. If it's a burden on the people, you don't want to sign that. Okay, you veto it. And that's going to be my checklist. So if somebody introduces a law or a piece of legislation down there, and it doesn't meet any one of those 5 things on the checklist, then it's no. No, thank you. I can't sign this because it's not doable, you know. And that automatically throws in omnibus bills and these huge budgets they want to throw at us, and you say, take it or leave it. It's like, no, you know, bring each department with their budget and let's have a look at it. You know, let's really dissect this thing. And that's the way it ought to be done. That's the way it had been done for the first 100 years of this country. You know, you didn't have a huge budget. You had probably 18 departments instead of 100. And the legislature could go through and, you know, line by line, decide whether they're going to pass this thing or not. And the whole system just exploded out of control right now. We have to get it back. I want to get down there and work with the youngsters coming in. I want to work with anybody with an open mind while I'm down there, and try to start a liberty caucus where we start training the people about liberty, the constitutional principles, and all those things. Because, you know, 6 years is a flash in the pan. So we got to bring more people up. So we got a continuous flow of fresh, young conservatives coming in. Really kind of what the Democrats are doing with the socialist program with all their youngsters coming up through college. Only we have to do a little bit different until we got our schools back. So with that, I think I covered everything. Does anybody have any questions? Dave, what was that question you had?
Well, I'll change my question.
No, I'm sorry.
I
can't play that with me.
You know, as most of you know, I spend the winters in the Dominican Republic. And I find out about Venezuela, and I find out about Greece, and I find out about Italy. And our media doesn't tell us what's going on today, right now, in Venezuela. We know what happened, but we don't know what's happening in the streets of Venezuela, or Greece, or Italy. We don't know how much they're allowed to withdraw from the bank. If you have money in the bank, you don't know that you're only allowed to take $60 a day out of the bank. You don't know that you stand in line for 3 hours to get the $60 a day out of the bank. Our media is into this whole thing. I mean, we are in dire trouble with our government. I mean, if Trump has done one thing, he has proved that Washington is a cesspool. The wealthiest people in the nation, the most millionaires we have in the country, live in Maryland. And they are lawyers and they are lobbyists. And that's the truth. And we have a serious problem here, and the media isn't telling us anything about it. And the people that go into government don't care about us. They get in their little petty groove and they forget. Now, what I was going to say was that you pointed out that we have the money and a portion of it we send to Washington. And then the state, Snyder, begs for his money back, and then the county begs for its money back to give us a road in Greenbush. We had the money to build the road in Greenbush. If we're able to get the money back for the road in Greenbush, 70% of it will have filtered and gone by the time we get it back. This is a horrible system.
And that goes with the whole economic development of this area, because I've talked to people and say, we need a road. We need to be able to move things, you know. Route 23 is not big enough. The railroad's falling apart. It's like, where's the money? Well, you better go talk to those folks down in Lansing, because, you know, they don't care about it. They get the money from us. But if we're ever going to have any kind of hope at some kind of industry out here, we got to get a road developed that can handle the truck traffic. Anybody else?
Yeah, I got a
Gary?
question, Dave. So you're talking about, and I get what you're saying, and I'm not picking on it. You're saying about we need to do this new thing you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Is this really a new thing, or is this the way it kind of operated at the beginning, and we just need to blow, you know, kind of like when the Philistines and David fought and they got the Ark of the Covenant back, and they threw the Ark of the Covenant on the ox cart, started taking the ox cart all the way back to Jerusalem, and then one of the goblets was going to fall, and David's friend touched it, and he died. Then they kind of blew the dust off the scriptures. Wait a minute, the Levites are supposed to put staves through the Ark of the Covenant and carry it back. Basically, you got to go back and read the original directions, and then do it the way that it worked.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about a whole new wheel here. I'm talking about, let's get back and fix the wheel we had, okay? Article 4, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution says we will have a Republican form of government, okay? We don't have one. We have dueling democracies. We have, like I said, you got one group here, Democratic, another here, democratically elected. They go in, a simple majority determines the lives of 9 million people. You know, that's another issue. You know, we should be having, another thing we should write into this thing is supermajorities. You should not be able to just pass a law by one vote. It should be like 2/3, you know. That way we know the majority of the state is actually on board with this, whatever the thing is they're doing, you know. And if it's really important, maybe crank it up to 3/4, you know, because Lord knows the people up in the UP, they get nothing. You know, it's like, hey, thank you very much for the money. You're great donors up there, all you counties. But, you know, Detroit,
Oh, God.
Lansing, Ann Arbor, Flint, you know, it's not fair to us. And we need to have representation. My plan here would be to have one senator from each county chosen by the county commission. Okay, and then at least one representative from each county. And then by population, you go up the list. So if like Iosco County, 25,000 people, you get one, okay? Wayne County with 100,000 people gets 20, okay? Boom, everybody gets what?
Wayne County already has 18 and only 2 of them are Republicans.
Yeah.
Be that as it may, okay? Once we get 44 representatives that are conservative from the UP and lower part of this peninsula here, or upper part of this peninsula, then we at least have a fighting chance. And I can guarantee you that there's conservatives down there in some of those districts and precincts that are going to vote for a conservative. You know, you just can't get around it. It's not going to be a complete Democratic whitewash down there. unless they start, using gang tactics, which I wouldn't put past them, but that's another issue. So that's basically the goal here, that we have to all start pointing our heads in kind of the same direction, at least talking about it, okay? I don't expect to go down there and then wave my wand and suddenly have, God come down and save us, because he's probably up there laughing and eating popcorn right now, because, like, you Americans are foolish for putting up with this stuff you're putting up with. I'm just gonna kind of wait and see how this turns out. Any other questions?
Article
Yes, ma'am.
5.
Article 5. I thought I already answered this.
Why would the founding fathers put it in there if they didn't want us to use it?
I'm all for what the founding fathers did, but they were 240 years ago, and who could have imagined the decay that this country has gone through the last 100 years? And if we're talking about, worrying about having people going in the bathrooms, we have to say that our education system has gone right down the tube. So who are you going to get in there who's a real constitutionalist? Who are you going to get in there that's going to stick to their principles? And who are you going to get in there that's going to make sure that we don't end up with a communist manifesto constitutional when we walk out of there?
Sorry, Dave, let me ask you a question, because you have to remember my history education was quite a few numbers ago. But if I remember correctly, if you open up a constitutional convention, anything can happen besides what you're asking for?
That's the other part of that.
Only by the scope of what is written. When you
I'll tell you what.
draft the actual resolution that is
I'll tell you
paid,
right now, I am against it because
Okay.
there's no safeguards, okay? So let's answer that question. Now, we can set up a time to debate this,
okay,
if you want, at a different meeting maybe, but I've answered the question.
Yes.
Turn that thing off.
it's going on the website, man.
And,
Only with his permission, that's what you gave everybody else.
Yeah, well, now it's kind of too late because everybody's is up there.
yes, sir.
Same question I asked.
Ask the judge.
Do you think you can win this district?
Yes, especially if I have great people like Jesse right there backing me up, and everybody in this room. Absolutely. I think that there's enough angry people in this district right
Oh,
now
yeah.
that I've talked to that are ready for a sea change, And if you tell them, we don't have to do a sea change, we just gotta go back and forth, And we can get things back together again. And back to the 5 thing again. We could single-handedly knock this thing out with 38 states saying, repeal the 14th Amendment, repeal the 16th Amendment, repeal the 17th Amendment. Boom, clean slate, we start all over again. We don't have any slaves we have to give citizenship to anymore, so 14th can go. I'm tired of the federal courts perverting that amendment and using it to, allow people from, Mars to have a child here and then suddenly get our Social Security.
Okay, I'm going to harp on you again.
Okay, man.
Would you be willing to look at conventionofstates.com and see the actual wording of the actual request, the petition that's going to go to individual states? It has to all match every single one that is approved by the individual states, has to match. I do believe they already have I think 10 or so states that have already agreed to it. It is specifically limited to the scope in that it's regulating the federal government. It doesn't regulate people, it doesn't regulate individuals, it regulates the federal government. That is the scope of the convention and only that. Would you be, you're a researcher, you're a constitutionalist. Would you be willing to research
Yes,
it and
I would.
potentially
I would.
vote for it? Because essentially what's going to happen is it goes through the states. It'll end up in the Michigan legislature. It'll be ending up on your desk.
No, what'll happen, it'll go to the Supreme Court.
Oh, God,
And
no.
what happened to everything else that the states passed
Yeah.
and put in our Constitution? Look what happened to marriage. Look what happened in education. In the Education Act, it
Yeah.
says that religion is to be encouraged. It's pushed out on the curb. I would never do that because I would want to make sure that people of like-minded pull together from all different.
But you haven't even read it.
But you see, what happens with our constitutional rights now at this climate.
And again, my comment is, why would the founding fathers even put it in there then?
Well,
we should-
they
we
gave
should have
us
a
what
debate.
good thinking, we got overfilled. Look what else we've got.
We gotta,
Yeah, okay, yeah. That's a debate for another time, yeah,
I got
yeah.
Carrie's phone.
Does anybody have any other questions for me?
Yeah, we got carried
Yes,
away.
Mark.
Yeah, I got one, and maybe Jesse can answer later. And it concerns economic development for the part of the state. Iosco County's depressed since the Air Force left 23 years ago. Iosco, Alcona probably suffers the same. Alpena is sort of in the forefront since you have a full-time person
just recently.
doing economic development. Bay County has a full-time person. I think probably Midland and Saginaw. Do you have any vision to try and make this a better place to live with, D's call it family wage jobs?
Yeah,
But at least wages so the people who graduate will stay here versus going to another state or downstate for economic opportunities.
yeah, absolutely. NAFTA's gotta go. NAFTA's not, they passed that like it was a law. It's some kind of agreement, right there at the end, agreement. When you make an agreement with another country, that's a treaty. It takes 2/3 of the Senate to approve it. They only got 60 votes for that thing. So that's not even legal. And they went ahead and pushed this on us back in 96. And Ross Perot said, you'll hear it. The sucking sound of all the jobs leaving, okay? The other part of this little coin is they took our Air Force base and they shipped it overseas someplace. So now it's supporting like some third world country, while it's oppressing it, by the way. We bring that back here to our state where it belongs in defense of our borders in our country, instead of out there doing corporate business with the oil fields, You gotta stop. About hemp. Hemp is a crop that the whole planet is using except for the United States.
Yeah.
You make plastic with it, you make cloth with it, you make paper with it, you make fiberglass with it.
Concrete.
Concrete
Some of the
with it. You
strongest
make all
concrete in the
kinds,
world.
exactly. You make all kinds of stuff with it, but they will not allow us to use it. We have farmers out here that would love to diversify with their crops, I'm sure. Instead of having to grow corn all the time, and then have to feed it into that blood-sucking ethanol program. Get some hemp in here, and then you take the hemp, and you say, okay, what do we want to do? Let's make some oil. Or let's get into the textile industry. Why not, And the other
Then it's a great product.
you got me going, Mark. Power plants, why do we have a monopoly? Those guys, first of all, back in '08, and you can probably back me up here, Jess, about the timing, but they made an agreement, they build power plants up here in Michigan. 0. They've been taking the money to build power plants in Michigan, but they didn't build them, so that's a breach of contract. Those people should be in court being sued by the state. Our district attorney should be suing the pants off those people and probably kicking them out of the state and getting some local companies in here to run these power plants, and maybe do something by surprise, like an open market in the state where you have
Yeah, that'd be nice.
power plants like Lincoln, dotting regions so we can compete and actually bring the prices of our energy down. Things like that. There's just so many. We go to logging. We can do the logging for lumber. If we just have a little common sense about a little bird. Okay, I'm going to wind it up. And you see, there's just so many opportunities for us if we just get the government off our back.
Just real quick, if I can follow up on that, Chairman. With another thing to look at too, and you're right, power plants, Wolverine up in Presque Isle County. Presque Isle isn't a very well-to-do county either. A lot of our area up here is depressed, but Wolverine would have been the cleanest coal plant in the entire nation. And first it was Jennifer Granholm that put a stop to it. So we elected Republicans. Then it was EPA and President Obama that put a stop to it. Coincidentally, my mom, my sister, and my brother, when I was talking about people having to move, all 3 of them ended up in Wyoming. My sister first, then during the recession, my mom's company, she was a office manager for Thunder Bay Manufacturing in Alcona. They make car molds. closed down. She moved out there to get a job because she couldn't, I think there was like 4 want ads, and all of them needed like a medical degree in Alcona if you wanted to work. So, and then my brother served 2 tours in Marja as a Marine, came home, tried finding work, couldn't, moved out to Wyoming. Oddly enough, obviously, you know, there it's coal and it's oil, and right now, I think in Gillette, Wyoming, so they wouldn't open the plant here, lost jobs, lose people. They went out there, the EPA and President Obama, because Wyoming is very Republican, as a result, I think they've lost 3,500 jobs in the past 3 months. There's been about a dozen suicides over the past few weeks because people are losing their homes, they're losing their children's college funds, they're losing their careers, their jobs. So it's funny how the coal here in our own backyard being an issue, opening that up, they moved to a different location where the jobs were, and then they finally, it trickles down. So as far as economic development, I mean, it takes a community to do that, and it takes time. You know, Alpena is just now starting to see, I think, the light at the end of the tunnel as far as, you know, what they've been working for. But all we would be able to do if we get down there is get government out of your way. That's the best thing we'd be able to do for you. But as far as trying to help revitalize the area by doing anything more than that, very, very little we can do. But you know, if you can get government out of the way, usually people find a way. Businesses come. It's probably the best thing we could probably do if we got elected. So.
All right.
Thank you, Dave. David, if you'd like to